Ah, Tyrus did succeed here. All right. So let's see when does that happen? We've got last date we had was 736. Now we had some kind of further spread heading south. So let's see, 736 to 740, 738. In 738, attempts from Tyrus and others led to the expulsion of the cult from Vagran. Now, Vagran is connected to the Crimson Highway, so it's possible. Again, this now it's over to yes, now it's over to Pitane again. What are you going to do about that? You've got now two cities up here that are opposing the cult. You've got a couple options. You could try to convert them again. You could try to take out Tyrus, the guy, the problem guy, the thorn in your side. Or you could try to send the might of the Crimson Highway and cut them off, with from imports. You could have actual military action against them if you have enough sway with the Crimson Highway. I'll have to roll on it and see, if your attempts to sway them to your aid succeed. But that would be some of the angles that I could think of, and you're welcome to think of others too if you'd like. Or you could say that's it, wash your hands of Vagran and continue focusing on the Grey Sea. You got a few more cities down there that can fall to the cult. Economic retaliation, okay. Bankrupt Tyrus's businesses and cut off Vagran from some of their imports. All right, let's see here. So, in retaliation, Master Pitane decided to cut off Vagran's imports from the Crimson Highway and shut down Tyrus's businesses with his spies, with his agents and spies. Yeah. And influence, we'll say. Ah, okay, there you go. Yeah. Alright, well, let's see here. We'll figure out how successful. Let's see, is Pitane's attempts to stop the rise of... Good morning, Amanishtar. We're just getting the... oh, I imagine that's very early morning for you. I cannot recall the exact difference. Anyway, in Pitane's attempts to stop the rise of the cult, to stop the retaliation. Oh yeah, I guess that's not too bad. I used to be a bit of a morning guy, but less and less now. Yeah, it's midnight here, so. Is Pitane's attempt to stop the retaliation from Tyrus successful? Yes. Middling success, or no. Now, I think the odds are a little stacked against Tyrus, I feel. He's got 2 cities under his belt instead of several. So we'll say his odds of outright stopping Pitane, or out weathering Pitane's attempts are low, but so is Pitane successful? More than likely, yes, and or middling success. So let's take a roll there. Ah. I don't recall exactly what you're referring to, but no worries either way. All right, well, there you go. You shut Tyrus down. Babacus. All right, so the efforts were a great success, bankrupting Tyrus personally, and moving many nearby merchants under the sway of the cult. Yes, of course, yeah. Those who opposed Tyrus, we'll say those who opposed the magnate were rewarded richly. There we are. So that doesn't bode well for the efforts to stop this cult. So I think the next question then is, who will stand against him next? Oh yes, of course. Hey, Joy Hill family. Yeah, it's only 9 out there, so there's probably plenty of people who are out celebrating Mother's Day still. All right, so we've got let's see. The cult of Melium now seems unchecked. So let's find out what is the next thing to oppose them. Before we do that, I think yeah, that certainly makes sense. I also think that we should check what Aeon Isitar is up to, because he is in Elakar. So he was in one of the cities that was opposing the cult, and now he's seen, those who were helping to oppose the cult kind of falter and fail. So I'm curious if he is for or against the cult. So I'll have to explain some of this to Aemon Ishtar here, and we'll see what Aeon Ishtar is going to do about all of this. So let me just check in on this message from Aemon. Would be funny when it became a title and an organization of his own making. To mess with scholars in the years to come, yeah. Yeah, well, I did add in, I don't know if you saw on the wiki or not, Aemon Ishtar, but the last time, just after I was wrapping up, I kind of added in a note on the last thing that you said, which was, after his death, his strange library was found in YSO 839, where it was studied by some daring scholars. Many considered its existence troublesome or controversial. The myth of a past folklore character that he usurped, because we had kind of introduced that at the beginning, that he took the name of a past folklore kind of villain or something that he usurped, continued on for many years, merged with his name and his reputation. So he kind of continued to amplify that myth forward into the future. No, I don't think Drahale family does have a character yet. So if you wanted to start playing as well, just let me know. Aemon Ishtar, while you're here as well, let me just get you guys up to speed on what's going on with the cult here. So what Babacus and I were figuring out here is that this cult, which had been around for a few hundred years, began to kind of grow in steam within the more recent period. We can look over here on my timeline and take a look. We've got, He Who Basks in Radiance, Lord Nayar, Aeon Isitar. These are all characters we've come up with on the stream. And during this time, here's where all of a sudden the cult begins to rise in Ith and take power. So let me just update a couple more events from our timeline as I fill you guys in. So in 733, it was began to be introduced by Bara Patain, who is a local noble and sage, reminiscent of Rasputin or something like that. Oh, Joya family, no worries. If you enjoy, you can always check it out another time, or just keep keeping up with the story. Yeah, definitely. Emma and Ishtar. So here, I'll just sum up a couple of the little events here so I can move more over to my timeline and get you up to speed. I always appreciate people dropping in too. No worries. All right, in 735, he began to travel, spreading the word beyond Ith and into other lands. So I think we'll note down then that in 738, he crushed a resistance. Bara Patain stops a stops antagonism toward the cult in Elachar. East Radrigar, Cult of Melium, and this was in 738. All right. So let's see here. Yeah, so I guess Amun Ishtar is the rise of this cult. Just to give you an idea of the scale here, it started off gaining prominence in Ith. Then its spread has gone to Elpen, Hyrena, Sanazar. Sanazar is a holy city for another religion. So there could have been a lot of resistance there, but for some reason the persuasiveness of this cult was able to corrupt even the holy city into their beliefs. And then it started spreading south into the Grey Sea and onto some of these other places. We don't know how far it spread yet, because during that time, the cult had also turned its attention back to Vagrant and Elachar, where a merchant lord had kind of risen to power. Yeah, makes sense. Gather information and books from the losing side to preserve their teaching. So the losing side here was just a magnate, a powerful merchant lord, and his kind of financial strategy, which collapsed on him when the cult began to fund his rivals. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think about what kind of things do you think Amun Ishtar could learn from that? He just kind of continues collecting the information, or does he use it to help the cult or hinder the cult? Or does he just stay out of it and just observe? There's definitely things to learn here. But is that going to be the extent of his involvement, just studying? Yeah. Yeah, I think that would make sense. He's trying to kind of raise their attention to like what's going on here, but he doesn't realize yet that the holy city is kind of on the side of the cult by this point. It seems like he doesn't have any allies anymore. All right, let's note that in as well. The spy master of Elachar, Aeon Izatar. I'll set up links and everything in this article later, and I'll make a page for Master Patain We'll kind of get some of those side details done, but I really want to just once in a while do these story streams where you just focus on a historical event and just figure it all out all the way through, follow the story. The spy master of Elhokar, Aeon Isitar, attempted to report some of this to Sanazar, hoping that not all of the priests had fallen. Or had been corrupted, let's say. So let's see. I mean, he obviously would have his connections, being a spy master. So let's put it up to a roll of the dice, and we will just see here. Let me just shift this down. Yeah, yeah. No, I'm not at all worried that that he would come out as a public enemy of the cult, because that would not be in his best interest. So let's see here. Let's have what comes of Aeon Isitar's attempts to contact the cult, or sorry, to contact Sanazar. It's intercepted by commoners who see it as further motivation against the cult. Because if they got hold of a report showing how the cult had treated these merchants, maybe that would have been, like Babakust was saying earlier, something perhaps a little concerning. So we could add that in. We can say it's intercepted by commoners who see it as further motivation against the cult. We can say it makes it to the priests, but they don't want to stop the cult. Or we could say it makes it to the right priests who realize something must be done. Something desperate must be done, let's say. Yeah. Yeah, I did. That detail is still in there, Aeon Isitar, because the last time you had also suggested that you would steal some books. So if you look at our sections here, we got the Rise of Meliam. Let's see here. We'll make a new category in the middle, and this will be Resistance. Signs of Resistance. Kind of Act 2. And then we don't know what's going to happen yet. There could be a lot of stuff. But, like 40 years later or so, when the crisis is fully resolved, Aeon Isitar procured some of the cult's rituals and tomes. So we've got that definitely, those are books in his archive, in his library, that add to the strangeness, that is discovered later. Okay, oops. Open that up by accident. So we've got here, what comes to Aeon Isitar's attempts to contact Sanazar? It's intercepted by commoners who see it as further motivation against the cult. It makes it to the priest, but they don't want to stop the cult. Or it makes it to the right priest who realize something desperate must be done. Alright, so let's roll that one. 2. It makes it to the priest, but they don't want to stop the cult. Yeah, so that kind of attempt fell short. Unfortunately, his investigations were met with resistance, as most of Sanazar was firmly under Pitane's thumb. Alright, I think now we'll just have to be a time where we roll another dice and say, what is the next obstruction to this cult? It seems to be growing with such power. So we can put in here, let's say, perhaps personal disaster for Patain. So it could be perhaps his health or loved one. And perhaps the cult is not able to help with this through their devious rituals. Might drive him into even more reckless territory, which would be bad for the future of the cult. So personal disaster for Patain. We could say the next obstruction to the cult would be a foreign power intervening. Perhaps one of the lands that they start to spread to is even more aggressive against them. Could be rise of the commoners, who are tired of the nobility involvement. And we've got, let's see. Yes, of course. I can note that little character detail in, of course. Aeon is furious upon learning his contacts had refused him. Okay. What is the next obstruction to this cult? Personal disaster for Patain. Health, perhaps, or a loved one, perhaps. A foreign power intervening. Rise of the commoners who are tired of the nobility's involvement. Let's see. I think that's some good rounded out options. Could be, actually, let's say, strife within the cult. Yeah, definitely makes sense. Okay, here we go. Personal disaster for Patain. Babacus, are you still there? What happens to Patain? Yeah, I thought would be a good one. That maybe that will come when Patain has if this causes Patain to have less of a grip on the cult, maybe that one will come of it as well in the future. But what happens to Patain? Health condition worsens. Loss of a loved one. I don't know. What other things do you think Patain would be involved in that could be then a disaster for him? Could be a safety disaster, like shipwrecked. Actually, let's make it specific. We'll just say shipwrecked could be an option. He's traveling to these other lands constantly, right? Shipwrecked. Scandal. Personal scandal due to philandering. Learned too much about Patain. No. It's a good one. All right, let's see here. Five. Health condition worsens. Oh no. Perhaps a little less interesting story-wise than the personal scandal, but there we are. What kind of condition? So, let's see here. Debilitating disease. Could be, let's say, like physically debilitating. Could be some form of madness. Could be an old injury that won't go away. All right, let's roll those options. Some form of madness. Interesting. It could be. Well, let's on that note then, if it's symptomatic of madness, let's check out if there's a metaphysical aspect to this. Is the madness related to any actual powers involved in the cult? Maybe this will lead us to learn more about Meliam herself. So let's see here. Yes, it's the cost of working with Meliam. Yes, it's the cost of dark old magic that the cult has practiced and called Meliam. So that's not that. In the second option here, it's like Meliam isn't actually a deity, but they've done things and pretended and called it Meliam and invented this deity in order to help sway people. Let's see. It's the cost of working with Meliam. He somehow slighted Meliam. So in this one, again, Meliam would be real. Or he's now possessed by Meliam. There's some rich options there. And then I guess we could say also it's unrelated. It's just madness or some sort of mental disability that has taken a turn for the worst. Yes, exactly. Good catch, Bobicus. I was there for it. It's unrelated insanity. All right, so let's see here. We're gonna have to play with the probabilities here a bit because on the one hand, by doing the World of Gethra stream, we're targeting areas of history that are interesting. So we're not just, this is humdrum life. So there is a higher chance of things being magical and exciting. But on the other hand, we also don't want to make these, it's obviously more likely that he has unrelated insanity. So let's add on a couple options there. Possession seems a little less likely. Perhaps he got on the bad side of her if she's a deity. And perhaps there is no deity at all. That one also seems like it would be the most common. All right, so the chances of Meliam being real here are not substantial, but we do have, some odds for that. Great. Here we go. So 10 options here. Why don't we make it a little bit more fun and actually roll dice? Even just Google is not. I'm sure there's plenty of better rollers, but you can even it's fast, right? So we're gonna roll 10. Here we go. 9. It's the cost of the dark arts. All right, and then the last thing we have to figure out. This is perhaps a pretty detailed little incident, a little blip in Patain's storyline, but we got to get a bit of detail out of this one. So the next thing to say then is, what is the cost to the cult of Patain's madness? And this is where we might have internal strife come up again. Internal strife might happen. Could be new leadership pushes Patain aside. And there's not strife. Maybe it's an easy transition, but Patain's out, Could be when their magic works, I would be interested for insight, even when Aeon can't use it. Yes, yeah, that makes sense for sure. Whatever they can learn with magic is still something that is possible within the world, so that's something that Aeon would be interested in. I will say, actually, why don't we add this on Aeon's page just to kind of balance things out a bit here. We've looked really closely at Patain here for a minute. So let's say for Aeon Istatar, let's add on here where it talks about his... Oops, I want to edit that. He procured the teachings of the cult of Meliam. Why don't we say in here, the ritual they used to spell a famine upon Hyrena, because we mentioned that kind of at the beginning as one of the early things they did. The ritual they used to spell a famine upon Hyrena was included in the information Aeon gleaned. So he did discover when he stole their documents, Ammon, he did discover that that the spell that would allow for this famine to be performed. So yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so heading back over to our thing here. Sure, I like Babacus, that's a good point. So let's figure out what is the form of madness.